These things will not match.
So much of this stuff is matched at this point.
So much of this still stands.
Yeah.
I'm just promoting you, Jane. Thank you very much. Very noted.
Okay, welcome everyone. This is the 28th or penultimate of the Government Transition Advisory Committee. Today is Tuesday, February 11th, and we'll be here from 6 to 8 p.m. My name is Julia Meyer. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm part of the city's transition team. Our co-chairs, Fred and Jose, will facilitate tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. I'm just going to go over some meeting logistics. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the transition website under past meetings and events. For tonight's meeting, we have closed captioning available. To access closed captioning, you can click on the CC button on the bottom of your screen. We also have American Sign Language and Spanish language interpretation available. To access the Spanish language interpretation, you can click on the globe icon. For committee members, please take just a moment to change your chat settings to everyone so that folks in attendance can view the chat. And please remember that the chat is part of the public meeting record. And finally, for community members listening in, we have the Zoom Q&A feature available, and you can submit questions or comments through the Q&A function. And please note that the Q&A is also part of the public meeting record. I'll turn on my video in a second. With that, I'm going to pass it to Fred to share some recent connections with city leadership, and we can go to the next slide.
Ooh. Oh, shit. I'm looking. There we go. There are a handful of city leadership connections Jose and I want to share with you. On January 15th, Jose and I offered verbal testimony in support of increased council staffing, and we offered written testimony related to the creation of council committees. Council did vote to increase funding to council offices, and they voted to create the initial council committees. We sent a request to the city for a written response to the GTAC's recommendations. The city is working on the response, and we anticipate receiving it this Friday. Okay. We also want to acknowledge and appreciate that the City Budget Office incorporated its response to our budget-related recommendations into its recent Budget 101 presentations in the community. Jose and I met with Councilors Liana Lane and Dan Ryan as chair and vice chair of the Governance Committee to talk about our work. Last week, I testified before council on our recommendations related to city administrator recruitment. It was a robust discussion that resulted in Michael Jordan's appointment with a sunset date of January 2nd, 2026. Multiple councilors referenced GTAC's recommendations for a robust public process. As Julia shared with us by email, the new engagement officer started, and we are scheduling a co-chair meeting with her to share GTAC's engagement-related recommendations. Finally, we just confirmed 2 dates for GTAC to be at council. March 10th in the afternoon for a session of the Council Governance Committee, and March 19th in the evening for a session of the full council. And we're all invited to each of those, and then we'll figure out our presentations as we get closer to the date. Please join us. If you have any questions or suggestions about city leadership connections, please email me or Jose, copy Julia, and we'll get back to you. Next slide, please, and I'll review tonight's agenda. We need to approve. Well, let me get back to it. I'm sorry, folks. I missed meeting logistics, but I'm not going to worry about it because we all know how to behave ourselves, act civilly, and participate fully. How's that for a
You're doing great.
Sorry.
That's a working agreement. All right. Hang in there with me, folks. I'm having a little issue with my screens. But I just moving straight to, yeah, would you please?
I'll just do some of the logistics. So we're on slide 4. This is tonight's agenda. The beginning is, as always, some committee business and a little bit of time for public comment. And then there's three primary agenda items: a preview of the transition evaluation report, a discussion and vote on the voter education subcommittee's proposed recommendations, and a discussion and vote on the additional recommendations work group proposed recommendations. And then, as always, we'll just conclude with a review of our upcoming meetings. You can go to the next slide, slide 5.
I just lost it. So.
I'll just keep rolling because this is the business part. So no one said that they cannot be here tonight. I know we have some folks who aren't feeling well that are joining virtually. We do need to approve the January 14th meeting summary. Does anyone have any proposed edits before I take a motion?
It's good.
Okay, could someone give me a motion to approve the January 14th meeting summary?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the January meeting.
Bill, thank you. Can I have a
Yeah.
second?
Tegel second.
Thank you, Jane. All those in favor, a virtual hand or an actual hand?
Yeah, good thinking.
Great. The meeting summary is adopted. The last order of business is to review the working agreements.
We all know how to participate fully, accurately, civilly, and enthusiastically. And may we proceed because we have a full agenda this evening.
Okay, I'm passing it back to myself to go for public comment. Community members were asked to sign up ahead of time. I'm going to double check one more time. No one has signed up, so I'll just pause as we normally do for a couple of moments just to see if anyone in attendance
Amy.
would like to offer public comment. Amy, let me just go through the public comment and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so before we go to Amy, just as a reminder for folks, you can submit public comment at any time to the transition or to the Government Transition Advisory Committee by calling 311, by emailing us at transition@portlandoregon.gov, or going to the transition webpage and using the online public comment form. Amy?
You had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I saw it in the news that Shoshana Oppenheim had moved
Mm-hmm.
on the transition project. And I would just be remiss to let it go by without saying publicly thank you to her for her work and her leadership throughout this transition. And she was always a touch point for GTAC and did a lot to kind of support us from a leadership perspective. So just wanted to say thank you to her, and I hope the committee wishes her well in her next endeavor.
Thank you so much. I think that's so important. She was an absolute critical component of the transition team and our success. So here's to Shoshan.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. And I think we're going to go to Jose to introduce the next agenda item. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person with you all today, but of course, one goes out of town for 2 weeks, comes back sick. But we have until 6:45 to receive a preview of the transition evaluation report and provide some feedback. Juan Carlos Ocaña Chu, Racial Equity Program Manager with the Business and Finance and City Operations Service Areas, is with us today to preview the evaluation report. We've asked Juan Carlos to limit his presentation to no more than 15 minutes to allow time at the end for your questions and discussion. Juan Carlos, take it away.
Thank you very much, Jose, and good evening, GTAC members and members of the public who are seeing this. Again, my name is Juan Carlos Ocaña Chiu, and I'm the Racial Equity Program Manager for 2 service areas, and I am also a member of the transition team. And I'm the person who most recently was assigned to complete the evaluation. So I wanted to go with you, offer you a little preview, not a little, actually, a pretty substantial preview of the evaluation that we have done so far, and ask and answer any questions that you may have. So next slide, please. So what are we evaluating? You know, we had a lot of conversations about this. We had a couple of meetings with GTAC members who were interested. And the five items that we're evaluating are the ones that you see there on the screen. So delivering the changes on schedule, the charter changes, delivering also the related structural and policy changes within the city, primarily the new city government structure with service areas. And also they're delivering the project on budget. And then more specific to the work that we do is providing clear and effective education, communication, and engagement activities to both internal and external stakeholders. So internal stakeholders are primarily our our employees from the city of Portland, and external stakeholders are Portlanders and any other community members that have an interest in the transition. And the fifth item was measuring the agreement of those stakeholders on whether the new organizational structure and technical changes have prepared the city for future improvements in service delivery. Why did we do this? We chose this primarily because that is in the transition team's scope of work. We wanted to make sure that we evaluated what the transition team was charged with doing. I know that was something that we had a lot of conversations with GTAC and other folks. There is a desire to do a more comprehensive evaluation of the true impact of the charter changes. And that is something that's really outside of the scope of the transition team. We hope and advocate for the city to allocate resources to do this kind of evaluation. But at the moment, what we can do as a transition team is measure what we did. And these are the 5 items that we chose. How we're doing this, each of these statements, we used a performance stories methodology to develop a series of data points for all of these statements. And we're measuring those data points with primary sources, which are basically the documents that show whether we did this work or not. And I sent you, in the materials, you received a list of the primary sources that we have identified that will tell us, confirm or disprove whether we did our job or not. And for other aspects of these performance stories, we need to collect secondary sources, which are the thoughts and ideas and opinions of Portlanders and of city employees. So to do that, we created two surveys that were distributed as widely as we could with the resources available among the employees and also among the community. And we received, as you saw in the notes, I think at the time we had about 500 so responses. The final count as of today is 690 responses that we received between both community members and city employees. So those are the 2 main sources, again, how we're doing this evaluation. And you can see there the list of the different important elements of those sources. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So big question has been, how do we do financially, right? Did we deliver the project on budget? And as of today, with the information that we have, The transition project is on track to be delivered on budget, which we define in the transition work plan as within a 5% deviation of the original estimate created by the CBO in the spring of 2022. And that estimate was a range between the two ends. The low end that CBO estimated the cost was 12 million, and the high end was 17.7 million over 3 years. And those are the one-time transition costs. Again, we're not talking about the ongoing costs because that's something that the transition team does not control. But what we control was how we implemented all these changes within that budget. So again, as of today, the projected one-time expenses are $17.2 million. We don't have the final number because we're still waiting for invoices, primarily from the City Hall renovations project. So this amount will increase, but I don't think it's going to increase significantly. But I could be proved wrong. I don't have those figures yet. But again, as of today, to the best of our knowledge, the projections are $17.2 million. What does that mean based on the goal that we set at the beginning of the project? It means that we are 3% under the original high end of the estimates, or we are 43% over the low end of the estimate that CBO provided in the spring of 2022. I asked the people who are in charge of the construction project and the other outstanding projects, and they indicated that for sure we should have final numbers for the cost by June 2025. Next slide, please. Now, going to the secondary sources, to the surveys, I wanted to provide you with a quick overview of where the characteristics of the demographics of these are data as of January 31st. The survey closed last Wednesday on February 5th. And I still got some paper surveys on Monday, so I haven't entered those yet. So this is, I would say, like about 80% of the responses were in. So this gives us a very good snapshot, but it's not the final numbers. So where do people live? Now that's something that is a really important question, and we can see that. We are lagging in the areas where we traditionally don't get as much response, primarily in District 1. You can see that is a district that is underrepresented, as is District 2 as well. Districts 3 and 4 are overrepresented in the responses. So for future evaluation, this points to us where we need to make a better effort in order to getting the information from folks who live in those two districts. Next slide, please. In terms of race and ethnicity, same situation, that we were not able to get as much diversity from respondents as we would have liked, or to even mirror the current demographics of the city. We see some over-representation of percentage-wise in the responses of some groups, and then also significant under-representation, especially in the Latino, Latina, or Latinx or Hispanic community. And similarly, the African American community and the Asian community. In the community responses were not as percentage-wise, not as high as the percentage of folks from that community in Portland. And again, the responses from the white community were slightly overrepresented. And it's interesting, that's not a mistake. the percentage for both city employees and Portlanders that responded was the same. That was just math worked out and that. Next slide, please. A few other questions that were important to mention about demographics. 17% of Portlanders indicated that took the survey indicated they have or live with a disability. For city employees, that percentage was about 20%. Other questions that GTAC wanted to include in previous surveys, so we included this in this survey. You can see that I'm not going to read all that list, but it gives you a good sense of where people from these different communities, what percentage of responders from those communities took the survey. So I think it's a pretty well, a good mixture of responses, and also some areas in which we need to do a better job as well in terms of reaching out to those communities when we have the opportunity to ask again about the impact of the charter changes. Next slide, please. So what are the main things that we learned from the surveys? Most respondents think that the city was mostly successful at implementing the charter amendments. So 39%. So this was a question that was between 1 being the lowest and 10 being or like least successful and 10 being most successful. 39% of responses were in the 3 highest levels, so 8, 9, and 10, and 22% were in the lowest levels, 1, 2, and 3. Second question about understanding ranked choice voting and how to fill their ballot. 84% were in agreement compared to 8% in disagreement. How are you more likely to engage with council now that there are people in those positions who represent your district? 42% were in agreement, 27% in disagreement. This was the next item was the most surprising, if you will. When we asked whether people are more likely to participate in city elections now that there are districts and ranked choice voting, 38% of the respondents were neutral and said they're not less or more likely to participate. And 30% were in disagreement, actually, that they're not more likely to participate, and 28 were in agreement. So that was a pretty close disagreement and agreement, and most people definitely on the neutral side. Next slide, please. Another question was, do folks understand the roles of the executive mayor, city administrator, and legislative council, and the differences between those roles? And 52% were in agreement that they understood, and 33% in disagreement. And the question that we asked about whether they think that the new structure with the executive mayor and city administrator and bureaus and offices grouped in 6 service areas, whether that will increase coordination in service delivery. And 42% responded affirmatively, 28% negatively. And this is interesting, 29% of folks didn't know whether this will be more helpful in improving service delivery or less helpful. So it's also, I think, an interesting spread in terms of the responses. Next slide, please. So just to conclude, the next steps, this was written about a week ago. So we have closed out the community surveys, and I will continue the analysis of the results of the 690 responses. I'm also in the process of completing the primary sources collection, and then the next part is writing the final evaluation report with a tentative deadline of March 15. Keep in mind again that this means that we still by March 15 we still won't have the final budget numbers, but I think we will have a really good sense of where we're going to land by then in terms of that deviation from the original estimates. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Yes, and like I said earlier, we have to set about 6:45 for questions. So if people could please raise their hands, and I will start with Leah.
Thank you. Thanks, Juan Carlos. It's great to learn more about where things are at with this project. My question is about the survey. It's interesting to receive the results, but it is troubling that it's so overrepresented in District 3 and District 4 that it makes me wonder if these are meaningful at all, in terms of this being feedback that we can say is true of how people feel about this across the city. And so my question is there any time or feasibility to do some targeted outreach in Districts 1 and District 2 to make this a little bit more robust and meaningful?
Fortunately, the answer is no.
Figured.
Have the resources or the time to do that. We wish we did. Believe me, I think I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I would say that we have a sentiment that we really would like to do better. We recognize the limitations. I think you raised a good point about validity. I am not a statistics person, but I will definitely consult with the experts to see how reliable, how valid this survey can be considered based on those limitations. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we can at this point. And again, to the best of our abilities, or mine at least, I will continue to advocate for the city to do a comprehensive impact evaluation of not just of the transition, but of the entirety of the charter changes and what they mean. And that will need time. We'll need a number, at least 2 or 3 years to begin for the changes to take effect and to be able to ascertain what the impact has been. But I think it's never too early to begin, so hopefully we'll be able to make it.
Thank you. Destiny?
Thank you. One of the things that was interesting to see is like what engaged people the most, whether it was social and things like that. It was also not surprising, but also reaffirming of what people have shared of a lack of diversity and engagement with the city. And I think in a side conversation, one thing that I and someone else from District 1 shared was like, we don't hear of anyone from District 1 being hired into the city in this new form of government, which isn't to be reflective of any counselors, but this also shows that city staff historically aren't in District 1 or historically in District 2. And like you said, we just are not investing our time and energy into repairing that inequity. And instead, and this is another tangent on our hard to reach voter education, what budget is allocated is consistently questioned. So again, just uplifting that we have data time and time again, proving that the city has not historically engaged District 1 and District 2. While the responses are great for knowing what predominantly works for a certain category of people and ages and places, it again is not reflective nor tells the story, as Leah says, of what's happening or what's interesting in other locations and for other different people, which does require extra time and attention investment. It should be focused on.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Destiny. Bill?
Thank you, Jose. Yeah, Juan Carlos, when I was looking at those figures, in terms of the number of people who responded, it looked like it was a couple 200 something. Oh, but my question is, was there a number that you and your colleagues hope to get? And this is the actual number. Was this number good in your perspective, or should it have been higher?
The conversation that we had with among the team in considering the responses to other surveys, like the survey that GTAC had out, we landed in that about 700, between 500 and 1,000 would be great to have in terms of responses. So in that sense, we are within the ballpark that what we hoped for. I personally, at some point I wanted to be a researcher, and my bias was always for getting more data. So am I personally satisfied? No. I wish we had better participation, and I wish we had more diversity in the participation, as it has been mentioned. However, historically, we did a little bit better than average.
Thank you. Lori?
Hi, Juan Carlos. Thank you for the evaluation. It's really helpful to see the incoming data. I was curious if you've gotten any requests for hearing about the final report, like whether it be within city administration or city council, and in particular, and maybe this was, obviously it's not all finished, but it looks like the internal stakeholder response was much more negative than the external. And so I'm wondering if city administration or city council is going to be doing anything with that information, or if they've asked you about it yet.
Thank you for the question, Lori. The answer is no. I haven't received any requests. This will be part of the overall transition report, and it can also be a standalone document. I imagine that folks in decision making will be reading those reports, and once they do, and if they want to get that information, we will be happy to share. We took a lot of measures to make sure that the responses were as anonymous as possible, so the responses cannot be or attached to any specific person, which is important, especially for city employees. And I agree. The sentiment among the majority of people who took the survey from the city was not very positive about some of the changes.
Thank you.
I think also, and that again, the grain of salt, proverbially speaking, with that is that the survey also came at the time where the city is going through a lot of very difficult changes and facing a significant budget shortfall. And that tends to definitely influence the responses from employees, from anyone really, but in this case from employees. So it's the timing was unfortunate, and it's really hard to parse what motivated those responses. But regardless, the responses are there, and we will be happy to share them with the decision makers or anyone else. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out, Lori. I know we have the data, but having those spread out, what those discussion points we talked about, employees versus community members, having those separate and sort of lumped together would have been great in this presentation just for everyone at large. But Jane?
Yes, I think, yes, thank you very much. I was fortunate to do a lot of work with JD Powers and Associates. So, so my sense is that this survey is not representative or could even be presented in any way, shape, or form as accurate, given the number of people that you have to hear from, equally across districts. So I think that I would recommend you go to your data people and ask them how can you present this survey as being useful in any way. And then I think that you will hear that that's not so, because I remember when we did our survey work and we didn't hear from a certain group of people, we had to aggressively go into the community and hear from them, and sometimes pay people to give them to get the answers that we need. So I think that that would be my number one thing, is that please don't present this as being fabulously real, because my sense is it might not be. I think that you could present it as a finger in the wind kind of a deal. But I still think that what it underscores is that I would recommend that no more survey work be done unless you can be guaranteed the resources and the time to be able to get to the people that you need to hear from. Because otherwise you're just going to hear from people like me all the time who fill out surveys because that's what I do. That would be it. And then by all means include it as work that was done, but with the caveat that the people who really know about surveys, not just fabulous people like yourself who are doing the work and wanting to get the information, will actually back the survey results up. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I think those are great recommendations.
Thanks, Jane. Destiny?
Definitely want to uplift Jane's recommendation because, you know, we shouldn't be doing more evaluations if we're going to keep doing the bad practice. The great effort of like asking questions and all is great, but that I want to uplift that. One thing that I think we can say is from the respondents who did show up, from the employees and the community who are visible in this data, is that they're not sure if charter reform is going to improve services or, you know, eliminate redundancy. So I think that's something the mayor and the deputy administrators and the counselors have to keep reminding themselves as they move forward, is that that's a big goal and that's something that this data at least shows. And then also, people felt like there wasn't enough opportunities to provide feedback to actually be considered. And I think GTAC clearly has uplifted that sentiment throughout the transition. And granted, it was on, you know, a tight timeline, but I think again, it reiterates that part where it's like, where is the transparency and the accountability in such a critical moment as restructuring our government? So just uplifting this too from both community and employees.
Thank you, Destiny. Zach?
Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I think it's good. Yeah, I mean, I think the only finding from this is that the way of how we've conducted this survey, if city council is assuming that they're going to get input in making their decision making through the same means, they are not going to represent Portlanders. And I think that's instructive. Maybe we have these recommendations or feedback about the survey, but I think this is a recommendation about community engagement and about how city council should be running itself. So I find our kind of online surveys, tech surveys, like they're cheaper and potentially you can get more responses, but if they're not representative, they're completely insignificant. And I would rather us pay what it would take to have at least 100 respondents in District 1 than to pay whatever we did to have this survey.
Thank you. And just to clarify, we did this within the resources available, and that means basically my staff time, which as a salaried person, I get paid whether I did this or not. So with the support from my colleagues here from the transition team as well. So yeah, so that's just wanted to make sure that this didn't cost any additional resources. There was no money allocated for this. And also, I don't know, Zach, if you were mentioning this or not, I also wanted to clarify. This was not done at the request of the council, whether the past council or the current council. And as far as I know, there's no intention from the current council to use this survey in any way. This was something that we wanted to do as a transition team to take a crack at getting a sense of what Portlanders think about the transition work with the limitations that we discussed from the beginning. And I really appreciate everyone here pointing specifically the limitations and how they make this survey really difficult to uphold as something that tells us an accurate picture of what Portlanders think or what employees think. Thank you.
Thank you. Destiny, is that your hand up again?
No, I'm sorry.
No problem. Just checking. I just want to quickly lift up what Destiny and Leah and a few other stuff said. And I do appreciate Juan Carlos of all the work you all took upon yourselves to do. But it is hard sometimes to see these kind of incomplete sets of data. And I wish that the city would put more into these kinds of things so that you wouldn't just have to do it on your own, so that the city had systems in place to get feedback on the things we are doing. I think one of the big things we've said as a committee is that the community engagement piece of the city is what was lacking everywhere you look. I think I said it in my own survey to the GTAC that we had to fill out, that ultimately every one of our recommendations comes back to how citizens can engage more with a certain piece of the government. So that's how we should be looking at things. Bill?
Yeah, Jose, this will be my second question. Do we have time?
3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Juan Carlos, given this discussion, do you or your colleagues have in mind parameters as to what the survey responses should have been in order to make the survey representative? You know, for example, probably comparable numbers of respondents per district. But even if it were 200 per district, is that representative? You know, I invite you to add any other characteristics too.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not a statistics person, but my recollection is that you actually for something to be statistically significant, you don't need a lot of numbers. I think what you need is that better representation. So if we had something that was more evenly spread out among districts and among the other demographic characteristics, this might be statistically valid. Even as it is, it might be statistically valid. I would have to. I like the recommendation. I think it was Jane to run this by the people who do data as their main work, to see what their professional opinion is, the reliability or the statistical significance of this. And I think based on that, if we did this again, then we could set those better.
Thank
Good
you, Juan
question.
Carlos.
Not a good answer, but a good question.
Is randomness part of it in terms of contacting people? You know, I'm thinking, for example, if I put out a survey and said, if you have some opinions, respond, I'm only going to get people who, you know, who have strong opinions.
Yeah, well, to randomness, we tried to do random by promoting this on social media. Unfortunately, we had some glitches with that, with the limitations that social media have, of course. And then we distributed this survey to a lot of the existing partner organizations, many of whom are organizations rooted in communities that have been traditionally underrepresented in this kind of surveys. So we tried that way. We knew that we needed to oversample from those, or at least invite more people from those communities. Unfortunately, the response wasn't there. No, we got only the response.
So just FYI, prizes really work. When you find, you know, gift certificate or a box of See's candies or whatever, it increases your response rate times 5. So just that's good. But I'm hopeful that when the council, when the councillors start to have their town halls, that if there is any survey work, you hand out the survey while the people are there, they do it, and there is a prize right there that can be held up, and you turn it in, and then there's a raffle, and you've got what you've done. It actually is not that difficult moving forward once you start to get out into the communities. But do know that the data is there, that prizes help.
Thank you, everyone. And now I'm going to pass it on to Fred for the next session. Before I do so, I was just going to point out that I put a link to the city auditor's exit poll on the elections in the chat that was provided to us in the Q&A in case anyone missed it. Go ahead, Fred.
Right. Thank you, Jose. And thank you, Juan Carlos, very much.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you, Juan.
appreciate
Your work.
your feedback. Thank you.
We have until 7:20 to review the Voter Education Subcommittee's proposed recommendations, which were sent out to you earlier, and discuss the recommendations and vote. So subcommittee co-chairs Jane DeMarco and Zach Curl will share the subcommittee's work. Jane.
Thank you so very much, Fred. So last week we sent you a summary of our work since our formation so that we can focus today's discussion on those recommendations. But before we start to do that, look at the recommendations, I wanted just to take a couple of moments to acknowledge the work of the subcommittee. The subcommittee has met 12 times, 12 fabulous meetings from November 2023 to January 2025, and a summary of our work was sent to you. Members included almost everybody. Everybody at some point has been shanghaied into this subcommittee. Amy, thank you. Bill, Destiny, Fred, myself, Jose, Juanita, Leah, Terry, and Zach. In addition to myself, the chairs have included Bill, Leah, and Zach. What a fabulous group. I do want to take a little more time to appreciate the city staff and the county staff who did so much work to help educate Portlanders and who supported the subcommittee's work. Most of my life has been in education and communications, and it is assumed that it's a very easy job and anybody can do it. Because there are no lawyers at the table usually. And I appreciate that the people who do this for a living at the city and the county might often feel that their work never gets the money that it needs or the acknowledgement that it requires. So a special thanks to us because of that as well. So there was the very talented and lovely Sophia Alvarez Castro, who even when she was out on maternity leave wasn't out. Jennifer Chang, Francisca Garcia, and Katie Gavarez from the city's transition team. Fabulous work. The great James Eccles, who schlepped in today from the city elections office because he felt, oh my gosh, this is the end. And he's worked so hard and now what should he do but come and eat pizza just to feel somewhat better? Thank you so much. And Director Tim Scott, please, Leah, tell Tim how much we appreciated his work and how much we're missing him today. And you, the fabulous Ranked Choice Voting Project Manager, Leah, and she worked both shifts, right? So we had our final meeting at the end of January when we had a robust discussion of what we wanted to propose to you, GTAC, for the city's future voter education efforts. And our overall message for the city is to invest in what worked in 2024. We know what worked, and address identified areas of improvement for voters of color and voters for Dawn District 1. Much left out District 1. So I'm going to pass it to Zach to provide a high-level overview of the 3 proposed recommendations. And we're not going into them in great detail because we sent them to you and you read them. And even if you didn't read them, you could nod like you did, and then you could read them this evening. So thank you so much, Zach. Go for it.
Thanks, Jane. All right, so we had 3 proposed recommendation kind of buckets. To go with the first one, proposed recommendation number 1 was to begin planning now for the next election. Some of the considerations of the subcommittee included creating an early plan with more specifics than the first cycle, including district-specific plans and measurable outcomes. Another part of that was partnering with others in creating that plan. And the subcommittees voted specifically to recommend that the city reevaluate the hard-to-reach voter contract program to improve coordination and collaboration and establish those measurable outcomes. Proposed recommendation number 2 is increase internal and external coordination and collaboration. Considerations of the subcommittee included the opportunity to build and strengthen partnerships within the new form of government, including district-based counselors and the new engagement and communications officers, the need to fill in the gap created by the absence of both the GTAC and the transition team by creating a pool of volunteers. And the subcommittee voted specifically to continue some form of contracting for hard to reach voters, voter education with similar contractual restrictions as the election cycle, and ensuring city staff manage the program, which is would be a variation of what occurred this past year. Proposed recommendation number 3 is to refine educational content with a focus on hard to reach communities. So considerations in that the subcommittee included was ensuring the city prioritize investments in the education with a large impact, find more ways for Portlanders to reach, to learn about candidates, and to build trust with hard to reach communities between these election cycles. So now I'll pass it back to Fred to facilitate the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm taking hands. We've got, you want to take these, Zach, Jane, each recommendation at a time? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think I think everybody's had a chance to look through
Look at
it,
them,
and
yeah.
I don't think we need to sort it. We've got enough time, hopefully.
Okay, all right. Let's just dive into taking all 4 of them, and then tell us your name, and then which issue you have a question or a comment or an amendment for. Remember, are taking amendments. Leah.
Fred, I feel like you teed me up nicely by saying 4 of them, which there are not. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't note that I read through the notes of the committee. I obviously respect the work that everyone does, the knowledge you bring, and the conversation I imagine you had. But I was confused about the lack of recommendation about candidates and qualification for it, since the number 1 piece of feedback that we've received from voters that was shown through the city surveys, and also I can just say anecdotally in every presentation and every call and walk into the election office, is about the candidate lists. I think the city proposed some pretty creative ideas for how they could increase raise the bar for candidates to qualify for the ballot while still producing many opportunities for people to get on the ballot if they don't have the money or the resources to be able to do it on their own accord. And so I was slightly disappointed to not see that on there, since it is something that there seemed to be broad agreement across a lot of voters, which is a rare thing these days, that one thing that could be helpful is if we were able to constrain the candidate lists a bit more. That's my 1 piece of feedback. I recognize you all did a lot of work on this and coming up with these 3, and I imagine you had good reasons for only coming up with 3 of them, but I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that I was disappointed that wasn't included.
All right, Amy.
Yeah, I think this could fit into a few of them, but the communications team obviously worked extremely hard and were wildly under-resourced, but something that I wish would have happened with the voter outreach was new messengers or building relationships with trusted messengers around town. There wasn't really much of that kind of alternative messengers or messaging, and it could be just like an extra word on any of these, like refine educational content with focus on hard to reach communities and alternative messengers. But just recommending that that's part of the building this starting now.
Destiny.
Kind of going to Leah's point, we did talk about it briefly. We were talking about, I think, putting in a price, increasing the price for being able to, like a fee for enrolling and like fee for like, or I don't know, some criterias or sign-in initiatives, things like that. And what I shared and others in the committee, we didn't move it forward. Mostly my reasoning was this is a new election, a new super engagement of many candidates coming in. You did see easily that the data said that people were exhausted going through the ballot thing. But I think Oregon and Portland, while we clearly have disenfranchised areas of our city, we are more progressive in like our voting right and education and accessibility. And one thing I shared is I wouldn't want to create barriers or limitations not knowing if this is a repeated concern or if this is a first time new form of government concern. I'll share that and lower my hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Destiny. That was well said. I was shared those same thoughts in the subcommittee. Let's see, Juan. Jose, I'm sorry. Let's see, where's Juan?
I was there for the conversation, Leah, and I did want to just back you up, Leah, because I felt like I was the only one saying what you're saying at the committee. And it wasn't just based on me, but it's also based on peer cities and what they saw over and over. So even though we are trying to see that it keeps happening, the research has shown that it does keep happening in all the peer cities that we based all our other research on. So to be like, but this one piece, we're not going to listen to them on, felt weird to me. So I agree with you. I think something should be done. Like if they can still gather signatures, so we're not limiting people by raising the fees to come in. We're just making it so that people really want to. You can't just pay $50 and be part of it, you know? So I agree with you completely, Leah. I wanted to back you up a little bit.
Thank you, Jose. Julia.
Yeah, thank you, Fred. So I'm looking at the third one and we talk about refining the educational content for hard to reach communities. I don't know that we know the answer to that question. And I think it's one of the biggest questions to come out of this whole process is why we haven't reached those communities more, better. The numbers are so skewed and we keep talking about doing it more, but maybe it needs to be different. And I wish we had had the time to do more research with our peer cities on that topic. I think that is a whole question that I'm disappointed that we didn't make more headway with that. And I think there's still a huge opportunity remaining in the next cycle. Yeah, that's kind of the best I can articulate it, but I feel very unresolved about that whole question.
Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Fred. Just to add to what Destiny and Jose said, I recall we had a little, during the subcommittee meeting, had a little, chat exchange. And I think we also picked up on a comment that I'll say the city or county report had, was that maybe this is or it might have been your report, James, that maybe it's a one-time, occurrence, that it was the new election and everybody's, excited. So we had disagreement as to whether to act on that concern now, but let's see what happens in the next election. Now, I'm not saying there was consensus that if the next election has a lot of candidates, then we should increase the fee or do something. I think there would be disagreement among the members, but at least we can look at it at the next election to see if this is a recurring characteristic.
Thank you, Bill.
If I said that fairly accurately.
You did.
Okay. Yes. I've raised my hand because I agree that I don't want to create a bar to candidacy. I think that there was an onslaught, but as Destiny said, it's a novel, the districts, trying to do proportional representation, the 12 members, the salaries. I mean, I think people came out and filed, and a lot of them didn't qualify to the ballot. They didn't even, qualify for the public financing. They didn't even file a voter's pamphlet statement. But there was attrition through that process. I'm concerned about the fact that ranked choice voting was novel, and I think the community, James and his crew, the county, GTAC, I think we all did a great job of getting the word out. And that you look at the results in the surveys that the auditor's office has done, most people felt comfortable with it. They understood it. And I don't think that the city can afford to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars more in further education on ranked choice voting. Now, how the council and the administration does outreach to underrepresented communities through communications, through community outreach, exciting them about the opportunities to involve themselves in civic engagement and civic discourse and the benefits of that. That's a separate issue than voter education. When we implemented vote by mail at the state, it was a new concept for people. But now everybody loves it. And I think that we'll see that perhaps between July, after the primary next year, 26, and before the general election is when to do the voters pamphlets, the bus ads, the mailers perhaps, and outreach to underrepresented communities. But I don't see spending too much money on educating voters on ranked choice voting. Enough said. Destiny?
One thing that I'm also thinking about of like when I was sitting and voting, like I think if we're going to talk about creating more criterias on who can run, to me, it didn't even feel like we had enough mayor options. I voted for 2. And they say you can rank up to, 5 or 6, right? And like, and we had counselors in the dozens, but again, you can rank up to 6. And some people were like, I have too many choices. So it's this idea of voter satisfaction that I brought up before. It's this notion of engaging with your government. It takes time. We're investing in it. And so again, like, I don't know, maybe it's a more important conversation, but not many choices for mayor, a dozen choices for counselors. And so again, I think it's novel. It's going to be interesting to see if we do need limitations, because I'm in the firm believer that anybody can become something if they work hard enough. And I would be remiss working in early learning to think that more barriers and more redlining is going to make things accessible. Maybe and again, it's something earlier. And I think what Jose has also alluded to in the comment here of like, who are we to say what makes someone qualified for something? I have seen very qualified, quote unquote, people, and they're quite comfortable with the status quo. And charter reform was never meant to be something that was comfortable. So again, who are we to set standards? Again, we only have a data collection that's like 99% of who we always hear, and we're not investing for anything different. So again, I'm not willing to create more refining and more, red taping on things that is just benefiting certain people.
Thank you. Let's see. I think Leah is next, then Jose.
Yeah.
Then James, did you want to pipe in?
Yeah, but I think Deborah wanted to talk first. So I'll let her.
All right, thank you. Leah.
I'll just be real fast. I hear you on all that. I think I understand what you're saying. Also, I wish I had like prepared data for it. I did not. I'm not going to pretend. But I did get nerdy looking at past elections, and this is not unique to ranked choice voting. Portland has really long candidate lists. So this is not a flash in the pan, just a new thing.
Yeah.
The difference is that we don't have primaries now. And so we're going to continue to see exorbitant candidate lists
Good point.
on the general ballot moving forward. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I shouldn't make a declarative statement like that. But based on the past, this is not unique. This is not just a form of government thing. Portlanders tend to run for office. And we historically have had it's very easy to get on the ballot. And again, there are benefits and there are drawbacks to that. But I think my reason in bringing it up is just like, it's hard for me to unhear the amount of people who talked about how challenging it was to vote and how it kept them from voting because there were so many people.
Jose.
Yes, I just wanted to touch on something Destiny's saying, because by raising fees and doing that, you're not setting standards. You're not saying you must have this education, this things. You're making it so only serious candidates come in. When you have a job and you need an expert, you say, we need people that know this thing. If not, you can't do this thing. So if you want to run for office, you can either pay the money or gather the signatures. Which you need to do to run for office is talk to people, get their buy-in so they can vote for you. I argue that by making it these things a little harder and making the candidates that we do get have to do that, have to have those a little bit of barriers, get more signatures, we would fix what Destiny's saying. She's saying there were not enough candidates. There were plenty of candidates. What she's really saying is that there were not enough good candidates that she wanted to vote for. Then that's because I can go and sign up for pay a small fee and do absolutely nothing. So not really actually run for anything and be on the ballot. So that's what I think the the fix is. It's not putting barriers. I don't want to put barriers for people, but if people really want to run, they should show that they want to run and not just have their name on a list of candidates.
Ms. Scroggins. Ms. Scroggins, Deborah, you have your hand up? Or
Yes,
you gonna let
hello,
James?
hello. Yes, thank you, everyone. My name is Deborah. I'm the manager of our city elections division. I want to thank you all for this conversation and respond to some of the comments and concerns I've heard about ballot qualification. I just want to let everyone know we are so aware of this issue. We felt it ourselves. We were taking these applications and doing the reviews. James Eccles, elections analyst there is with you and can answer stuff more in depth if you have questions or want to talk with them afterward. But we have one of the most ballot friendly processes in the nation. And we're looking at that, right? Like what impact RCV has on that is unclear, but we know we need to look at that. And we heard loud and clear that there was a lot of confusion attributed directly to the number of candidates. So we hear you loud and clear. We are working on a rule amendment. We would love public comment on that, and we'll be having that out sometime this spring or summer. We will, of course, be circulating that to this committee and would love your input on that. We have a financial impact option, a waiver, if you cannot afford the fee. We also have a petition process. So there's a lot of ways to interact with the ballot, and we want to make sure it's an equitable process as well. But regardless of your recommendations, I just want to let everyone know that we're working on this and we're thinking about it. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any more questions of the subcommittee, Jane and Zach? James, do you have anything to add to that?
I just have a couple of data points I want to add, but if there are other committee members that want to talk.
No, we're just ready to proceed to a vote.
I just want to add a couple of data points to sort of supplement the conversation. One, I will say it is my professional opinion. I agree with Leah. This is not a blip. If we do analysis based on the number of seats and the history in Portland, this is actually pretty standard. We just had a lot more seats and availability. So I don't think it'll go down the total number because we'll only have a couple districts at a time. But I don't think we'll see a massive drop off in 2026 in candidates running. The other thing is I really want to highlight something Deborah said there. We implemented a waiver process first time specifically we felt that we didn't want to increase the fee and then lock out people that couldn't afford even a small fee. So we have a process in place for that. And then the last thing I want to say is there's actually some data that shows that if your ballot is too accessible, you're actually harming the ability of candidates from marginalized communities in getting elected, because if there's 40 people, it's hard for them to stand out. It's hard for there's all these people and the people that are throwing their hat in the ring for $25 because, hey, I have nothing else to do on the weekend. Those are generally not people from the marginalized communities. Those are generally these people that don't care so much. So it can actually have the alternate effect where you end up flooding the pool. People see it that be like, I want to have a shot this year. I would feel like I can represent my community, but there's 40 people on this list. There's no way. And then even if they decide to do it, often they aren't able to get the same amount of attention because it is a bit of a zero-sum game in how much attention a voter has in being able to give it to it. And they just can't give it to this many candidates. So that's just some data points that we've seen in our research. But I agree with Deborah. It'd be great to reach out to anybody because we do think it's an important issue. We do think it relates to voter education because there was so much confusion about it. It was like the number one thing that people said confused them about the ballot. When you have a grid style ballot and there's a massive grid, it's tough. So
thank you.
I just want to say that quickly.
Right. Thank you. I think that we did talk about the fact that there's got to be more opportunities for voters to meet the candidates. The community forums that did happen, each candidate had sometimes 90 seconds to speak. And people that I've talked to from neighborhood associations felt that they didn't get a chance to really know the candidates other than the voters pamphlet, So the voters pamphlet is always critical. Let's see, are there any, Terry? I'm ready to ask for amendments if anyone has it.
It's just going to move the whole package.
Thank you.
After I made a comment.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's just excuse me for fighting the old battles, But Baltimore typically had 100 candidates in a city election.
Mhm.
But it wasn't a problem because they had smaller single-member districts. So you don't get 30 candidates you have to sort through. You only got 7 or 8. So that's the difference. But anyway, I'll move the whole package, and I think it works pretty well as is. And we can.
Right. Terry moves adoption of all 3 recommendations. Is there a second? Bill seconds. Are there any amendments anyone wants to propose to this motion, to any of the 3 recommendations? We can, no hands on screen. I'm hearing none. So, Julie, will you call the roll, please?
I will. In one moment. Okay, so the 3 unamended. Leah,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Jose,
I'm gonna vote no because I think it is missing pieces.
Because what?
it's missing some pieces. Terry,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Juliet,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Destiny. No. Fred,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and Brian is absent. So that passes.
All right. Well, thank you, Jane, Zach, all of us as members of the subcommittee, whenever we put on our oars, and plethora. Thank you, James, and the county, both city auditor's office and the county, for all the help through those many meetings and those many community outreaches. Now I'll pass it on to Jose for our final agenda item.
Thank you, Fred. I'm not used to unmuting because I'm not in person.
Oh.
Okay. We have until we get out of here to review the additional recommendations, work groups proposed recommendations. So that's a mouthful. Let's discuss those recommendations, vote. At our last meeting, the work group reported on its intention to draft 4 recommendations and took member feedback. Last week, we distributed the 4 recommendations proposed by the work group for our consideration and vote. And I'll provide a high-level overview of the recommendations. The 4 recommendations were distributed last week. Next slide, please. Proposed recommendation number 1, find savings in the new form of government. The idea is really for the city to begin to identify the savings that were anticipated in the new form of government that has a more centralized administration. Considerations of the work group included to acknowledge the city has begun this work, to recognize that there is urgency to find savings now, and that it will take time to fully realize all the efficiencies. Not to be specific about how the city should find cost savings, and to ensure there's a public setting for the conversation. The second proposed recommendation was to develop an action plan to implement findings and recommendations in the budget and finance, staffing, and budget process transition report into the upcoming budget cycle. We have previously endorsed the report's findings and recommendations, and this recommendation is meant to really ensure that the city is just following up with that report. Considerations of the work group included to keep the recommendation simple and to recognize that a strategic plan is important, but won't really be completed in time for this budget cycle. Third proposed recommendation is to review and reform the city's overall approach to advisory bodies in the context of the new government, to district city council representation, and a renewed emphasis on system-wide community relations. Again, the considerations of the work group for this included to combine multiple recommendations about advisory bodies into one big recommendation, to connect the review and reform of advisory bodies to a system-wide approach to engagement, to recognize advisory bodies are the primary means of the city's engagement and to acknowledge that the city has begun this work. Also, to soften this language about an advisory body on advisory bodies to simply consider it, and if done, make it more like an ad hoc thing. The fourth proposed recommendation is to establish a code commission. The idea is for the body to rethink the city code in its entirety for the new form of government. And the considerations were that to recognize that the ongoing maintenance of the code is required, whether this is happening or not, and to include a time frame for establishment so that gets done, but recognizes that it's not really the highest priority. Basically rewrite the whole code instead of just band-aiding it how we've been doing. Because these are standalone recommendations, we will take questions, propose changes, and vote on each recommendation in order. And we have till 7:55, so you see 7:17 now. So about, I don't know, do the math per recommendation. So please be concise in your remarks. Fred will hopefully help keep track of time. Does anyone have any questions or proposed changes to recommendation number 1 about finding savings in the new form of government? And please. No hands? No hands? Number
Okay.
1's good to go? Well, this will be faster. We can just focus on the ones we need to talk about. Okay, moving on to the second one. If someone comes up with a question for the first one, let me know. Proposed recommendation number 2, action plan. Does anyone have any questions or discussion on recommendation number 2? No, nothing else? Okay, the first 2 have no changes. Do we want to just vote on those and just like get them done, or do we? Yes.
Go for it all, Jose.
Let's go
Yeah.
for it.
Go for it.
Okay. Well,
2 for 2. Keep
we
going.
might end early if we go like this all the way through. Okay, recommendation number 3. That's the approach to advisory bodies. Any questions, comments, changes on this one? No. Oh, we got one.
You
Just to break the ice. I mean, okay, so I appreciate the group of this work group. Appreciate the work of this work group. And I was a bit ambivalent when voting yes to proceed, and I'm a little bit ambivalent. I know that there's a good reason to have these recommendations. I think this third recommendation is the one that I'm probably most disinterested in pursuing, I guess. And I think the reasoning is it doesn't, like, I think what we're glomming onto is that we want better community engagement. And like there's a role of advisory bodies. Our space in this was kind of a weird hybrid where they really relied on us heavily for supporting engagement, and there's sort of some advisory stuff, but not really clear. And I would say personally that the representative body that this is far more diverse than most of the advisory bodies I've ever encountered in the city. And that's partly because the role of an advisory body, as it has historically been used, is very technical and has relied on that technical expertise of people who benefit from and or are impacted by that work. And we're representing a full body because like the changes of the city government affects everybody. And so I don't know, I need to maybe further digest this this direction and reviewing and reforming, but I get a little bit nervous when we're talking about wholesale reform and potentially consolidation of advisory bodies when it might eliminate the opportunity for government to have a way of getting feedback from some of its like key constituent holders that it wouldn't otherwise have. So I will try to articulate that better in text, but that's where I'm at with this one.
Thank you, Zach. Juanita?
Yes, I think that my comment will refer is that the way I see that recommendation is not necessarily how they're going to be, the advisory committees will be reformed. But I think that part of the conversation that we had was also in the sense that we want the advisory bodies are basically a very important piece of the community engagement piece. So if do we have a citywide system of community engagement, those advisory bodies should fall under that department where they all receive the same uniform, consistent training in terms of getting all prepared to serve the city. Right now, there's a very disjoint between what is the roles of these advisory bodies because they are trained and recruited by the different bureaus, the different departments. So by bringing them into a system-wide community engagement system, repeating again the word system, but so that was to me, that's the most important piece of that recommendation, that because right now they're totally all over the place. So if we can change it, maybe I can understand the concern from SAC about the reforming and how that is going to work. Are we sure that we know what the reforms are? I think that in terms of the expertise for each of those committees, the city already have a specific requirements, I imagine, for the content of those, the knowledge and expertise, the people that they need in those committees. So that doesn't need to change, but it needs to change the way they are structured right now.
Thanks, Juanita. Anyone else? Juliet?
Yeah, just to kind of follow on to what Juanita was saying in a response to Zach is I think number 3 is important because there are a lot of those advisory bodies and they are expensive to staff and operate. We need to make sure we know why we have them and that they are doing something productive because definitely some of them are counterproductive at the moment. And they do take a lot of, skilled staff time to run them. And I had another thought about that I forgot. So when I remember it, I'll come back.
Great. Thanks,
But
Julie.
it's a money thing.
Okay. Terry?
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the advisory bodies thing, I listened in on the governance committee of the council meeting. Good. And one of their tasks, one of their first tasks was to appoint somebody to a TIF district.
Yeah.
And they realized that, oh my goodness, we don't really have a process for that. How are we going to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Which then got into, oh my goodness, what about advisory bodies? And they are open to discussion of how to deal with them. And I think our recommendations on how to deal with them are really timely and will inform their discussions. I just think it's the right time to do it.
Yeah.
And everybody's sort of thinking the same thing. And to the extent that we can emphasize the good practices, best practices, I think it'll be good for us, good for everybody.
Yes, thank you, Terry. Destiny?
I'm just thinking like there's this whole thing of like liberal cities, they want an advisory anything on anything. And then like that last parentheses, an advisory committee on advisory committees. I feel like I kind of think of what Zach is saying as like advisory bodies are great as in it brings in people who are not a part of the institution. It's not a part of the establishment. And that's great because then like us, we can say you need more staffers. You 100% do. And maybe the establishment doesn't listen, but there's, you know, later interest of, yeah, we do need more city staffers. And so I think really what we need to focus on rather than an advisory body of individuals that are public Portlanders or constituents or come into Portland is really ask the counselors, you need to spend time talking about the importance of an advisory body. The mayor needs to spend time talking about the advisory body because sometimes, as people have shared, there was a frustration of what is our role? What are you willing to accept? How comfortable are you going to be being uncomfortable? And to have these discussions in a public discourse. So I think this puts the onus again on too much of just the regular disempowered constituent in the conglomeration of Portland, when we should really be saying the city councilors and the mayor really need to tackle with the cost of an advisory body. We are spending a lot, and how much of that expertise is actually making it to the decision-making rooms and conversations and phone calls? Very little, I'm imagining. So it's the city wasting its own resources because they're not willing to have that challenging conversation. How much am I going to allow people to come in and help inform the decision? Even when we were talking about the budget on staffers, they said, the mayor was like, I think it was, yeah, Mayor Wheeler was like, this isn't our first round on budgets. People come in and they're upset about one budget line when we've had all this experience. You shouldn't take that as an attack. You should take that as your role of bringing in an informed budget and then finding out people really are peeved with one part and will vocally tell you that. So I think, again, it has to come back to that community engagement and not putting the onus on just regular Portlanders who then are, you know, shunned. You're not informed. You can't have these dialogues. You're not qualified enough. And the city's wasting its own money doing that.
Thank you. Juliet, did you remember yours?
Well, I just thought of another thing. I still don't remember the really clever thing I was going to say, but I just think that this part of the city organization has not been reevaluated in terms of the new org chart. They're just kind of floating around out there and they're not aligned with the new charter. Furthermore, maybe this is the place that we set up an advisory body to help us better reach underrepresented audiences.
Thank you. Jane?
I think all advisory committees should sit under the new outreach officer. Part of the problem is structure in the organization. And there's actually fabulous research on how you run and you build fabulous advisory boards. You know, they're done all over the world and there's really, really good science on it, but it has to live with somebody and it has to live with somebody who values it and who knows it. And then every advisory committee is hired and interviewed and briefed and educated in the same way, so they don't go through what we went through when we came through, which we just had loads of information. We sort of had to together pull what we thought that we should be doing, right? That should be established up front. An advisory committee comes with a job description and a timeline, and they're here for X amount of time and they go. But you have to have a smart person who takes hold of that. So number 3 is a little nebulous. It's review and reform. Well, who's going to review and who's going to reform? So maybe we actually advocate that it sits in one place with a smart person who has done advisory committees before, which it looks like our fabulous new officer of outreach has that. And that in fact, it all gets erased and it starts over. We might have one good advisory committee somewhere and somebody will say, oh my God, this is a model. Well, then you could build on that model. But I reckon that the new officer knows how to do this. But review and reform is too nebulous for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And actually, I was waiting till the end to make my comment, but I hear what Zach is trying to say because I went through the long list of advisory bodies that we have on the website and started clicking on all of them just to see what it's like. Some of them are not really a thing. A lot of them aren't. Some of them are very specific people that are very much leading people in those fields for that advisory body. Advisory bodies are very different. I think the reason this needs to be nebulous is because we shouldn't say we should do this to all advisory bodies. I would hope that you look at this, and when you're reviewing how they work, it's not one size fits all. We do have things that are, like Zach said, specific to expertise that should be treated a little differently. I agree somewhat with what Jane is saying. I don't think all of them should be under a person, but maybe there should be a person that's in charge of teaching how advisory bodies are run, because it is
correct.
important for the chief financial officer to maybe be the one in charge of the budget committees and the budget advisory bodies, but everyone shouldn't be doing it differently. There should maybe be a person that's in charge of helping everyone establish their stuff. I know, for instance, the Sustainability Commission that was open a couple weeks ago, the applications were, that one was being set up in a very specific way by our chief sustainability officer. And I like how that they can each personalize it to what they need for their area. But I agree that there needs to be something that connects them all so that we don't have one person really put a lot of effort into establishing theirs and have a greatly put together advisory body. And then we have other advisory bodies saying we got nothing and we feel like we just rubber stamp what they want us to rubber stamp, which I've heard from other people. So it's difficult because I think the reason it's nebulous is because we're walking that fine line of we need something to be done, but we can't say exactly what it is. That's at least my thought. Anyone else or any suggestions for changing or additions to this one? No. Oh, Zach?
Well, Juanita has her hand up.
When is that your new hand or your old
Yes.
hand? Oh, new hand.
Yes, I just, I would like to, follow up on Jane's recommendation. I think that we need to say what we want and what we mean, because the more nebulous we leave it, then anybody can interpret whichever way they want to. And I think in this case, I think that we do know what we want. We want the advisory bodies to become a system within the community engagement overall system. That's what we want. And that there is an infrastructure where somebody takes that responsibility to how those advisory bodies are going to be recruited, trained, to do the whole the spectrum of all of the preparation that they will need to be functional. So I don't have maybe Terry as the wordsmith in the group, so maybe he can help us with a real quick recommendation, the changing the wording.
Well, there is in the larger text, it says consider, here, I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, that you did it? Okay.
I'm gonna raise my.
Yeah, I
Zach,
think it
did you
actually.
Zach, did you still have a comment or did you put your hand down?
Oh, you put it,
No,
okay.
thanks for calling on me. So I don't want to discard everything in this. There are definitely some really key recommendations, and I want to acknowledge that. Jane glommed onto that with there are a lot of needs for standardizing. Like Julia and her team has done a phenomenal job of being able to have our agendas and minutes posted and things like that. That does not exist at every advisory body, and it should. I mean, it's in many cases state mandated for public meetings. So I do think that there needs to be some kind of centralization or sharing of trainings that for doing this work. I also want to recognize that advisory bodies are a catch-all term for a lot of different things, and we have assigned it. We have struggled with what the interpretation is when we were assigned to an advisory body with this particular advisory body, where it's inform, but in many cases consent, and then in very few cases there is much more engagement and providing feedback. And I think if there were that transparency and clarity on the front end of the development of advisory bodies, that spelled out what the role of that is,
Mhm.
whether maybe it's just changing terminology and acknowledging that, like, you know, when it's a I don't know, one where it feels like, to those of us who are like, oh, I'm getting on an advisory body, why is this like a rubber stamp? Well, if it was like conveyed clearly, transparency of what that role is, then I think it would help clearly explain to the community like what this position is. But I think that leads me to, like, that is really just broadening communication. And like I'm just really struggling with where we sit in, like, how we can have us clear recommendation of, well, what a advisory body should be when they span so many different purposes of communication versus like actually getting feedback from the community. And so that's where I want us to, like, kind of fall back away from being really explicit on recommendations. I think there's a lot of great recommendations in here, but
That is
that's where I'm a little bit,
mechanics.
yeah.
How are we doing for time?
Thank you.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good because we went really
18
fast. The
minutes.
first two. Terry?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that the sub bullets in the recommendation text have a lot of this stuff in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the meat of it is. That I would say, you know, we I think discussed whether to put this all on the engagement officer. And I think we backed off just a touch, saying just clarify it. And put it as part of the engagement plan. It ought to fit a plan for engagement. But we also had you know, standardization, centralization, improve recruitment and promotion processes. All that stuff that we were just talking about is in there. If it's a matter of taking the headline and refining it, I guess we could. But I'm pretty happy with what we've been talking about and what we've got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Terry. Yes, the conversation is really actually backed up everything we put in the recommendation. Fred?
Yes, thank you, Jose. I agree with Terry. Zach, many of your concerns, I think, are addressed in the bullets, in the substance of this. And I don't see where it's directive. It's saying, we're saying, do this, do that. We're asking them to consider this, consider that. Look at this systemically in the context of what was created over the last 100 years and all these disparate little advisory committees. One of my first tasks when I joined this group 2 years ago was to go to the city website and just do a search for advisory committees, and up popped over 108. Now, apparently only 87 or so are active, but if they're so-called active, some of them shouldn't even exist anymore. And I think that's clear in the analysis that the city staff is doing now and looking at it. We're going to meet, I believe, at our final meeting with the community engagement officer. Jose and I and Julia will set up some time to converse with her about her plans and how she's approaching. But I think that's going to be a critical thing for us to follow, even if we don't get a chance to interact with her in March, that at least we'll be able to, as a committee, we'll have certainly opportunities as active, engaged citizens in futuro to do so. So I don't know, Zach, unless you have a particular amendment, I just don't see, or Jane, I think we've covered it pretty well in the context. I'm very comfortable and very grateful for the wordsmiths, both in the voter education recommendations and in these, because I know our meetings, we're trying to put a lot of words and discussion into each of those. And Julia, thank you very much for your work. I'm quite comfortable with what this says and ready to proceed. Thank you, Jose.
Yeah. Any other comments? Juanita's an old hand.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Thank you. Yeah, if you have any specific changes, because I think we're finding that most of the things people want are in here. But this is a good discussion. It really highlights the importance of some of these streamlined
Mhm.
things. So, anything else, or can we move on? Should I do this uncomfortable 7-minute second that Julie likes? Okay, Destiny.
Just a clarifying question, like when we're talking about like reconfiguring and like reviewing, like I don't think anywhere it says like update or clarify purpose of advisory body. I think that's the
No.
one small explicit thing that we're missing there. Like you can review and like disband, but there we put disband or sunset, but we don't say improve or like really intentionally clarify purpose and role and authority. That's, I think, the one thing that's missing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of Zach's comment too, if I can
Yeah.
just talk for Zach.
Mhm.
I agree. I'm not sure where to put it. And I mean, I think it flows through everything we're writing here.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the third bullet where you reconfigure the current constellation.
Right.
to Be more accurate, efficient and effective, provide
Advice and engagement services.
kind of gets it, but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah.
And clarify the responsibilities for management doesn't quite do it either, so. I hear you.
Yeah, I think it might be good, even just as simple as putting in a line in that the text that Amy wrote.
The
Of
third bullet.
the just consideration, standardization of proven effective practices. Just putting a line in there like a statement of purpose for every advisory committee, or just something short like that.
Including but not limited to the following clarity of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Is that-
We're
And
in the
bullet?
Yeah.
third bullet or the fifth, sixth bullet?
Sixth bullet.
Sixth bullet.
Consider where I lost myself. Standardization of proven and effective practices for advisory bodies, including but not limited to the following: clarity of purpose, and then the rest of them. Would that work?
Is that a change?
Clarity of each advisory body's purpose.
We could propose that as an amendment, but before we
Yeah.
propose an amendment, we're supposed to be voting on the recommendation. So we could just vote on the recommendation and then open it to amendments. Or we just take them all as a package at the end with that amendment. What do you,
I think we can do it.
at the end?
I'm fine with
Together?
package. but-
Package? Okay.
Yeah.
Is anyone object to the amendment as Terry just stated, adding just clarity of purpose in the line of standardized practices essentially? Does anyone have objections to that? Seeing none. Julie, if we can just put that in there, please. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the next one. Hopefully the next one will be like the first two. Recommendation 4, establish a code commission. Any comments or suggestions, changes, additions, subtractions? Leah.
I promise mine's easy and good. I just wanted to express gratitude for this one. I think when it was first brought up, I've been underestimating the thoughtfulness of how the recommendation that we might make. And I think as it's written, this is a great idea. It would be helpful to people, and the suggestions for composition, who could be on this, are wonderful. So just kudos to everyone on the group, and thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I will say, I was at a city council meeting and one of the staffers came up to me because they were talked about code a little bit, and Terry had made a comment and we were there testifying. So she asked me about what I thought about this. So they're specifically thinking about doing stuff like this. And they want to know our opinion. So when they're asking for an opinion, we should give them one. So yes, thank you. Okay. Nothing else? Nothing else? Yeah, this one was easy. It made so much sense to me, at least. Okay, so since we've moved through all of them, do we have a motion to vote on?
I
these
will
ones?
move to vote on these and accept them.
I'll second.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been moved by Leah and seconded by Amy, I think. Julia, can you call roll call vote, please?
I can. Bill,
Yes.
Juanita,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Fred,
Yes.
Destiny,
Yes.
Zach.
Thanks for bearing with me on that. I thought it was at least a good conversation that I appreciate that I wasn't a part of. So I am a yes.
Julia,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Jose,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Leah,
Yes.
and Brian is absent. So that passes.
Thank you. And I will say to Zach, I don't think it was bearing with you. I think we might have only added 3 words, but I think those were very important 3 words. I'm really glad they're in there. So I appreciate you bringing it up. I think that is everything on that. So we're a little early, but I'll turn it back over to Fred to close us out.
All right, thank you, Jose. Again, a good discussion. Again, very nice to have actually almost a quorum of the GTAC on each of the work groups. We had kind of momentum into this set of deliberations. So
Lucky for success.
yeah, we grease the skids. I will mention again that the recording of this meeting will be posted on our website when it's postable. And that our final next meetings or yay. Again, March 10th at the Council Governance Committee. I think, and March 12th for our regular meeting, and then March 19th for a full council session. Please let Julia know if you can or can't make either of those or the meeting. And are we going to party?
Yes.
Do we want to announce that now or just wait?
I'll send out a doodle poll for celebration time.
All right. I know that I hate to adjourn early, but I feel like it's a matter of,
Let's do
like
it.
we all need to go home and turn our thermostats up.
Ready.
Yeah, Leah's already ready.
Yeah.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you. Nice to you.
Thank you. Bye all.
Meeting.